All right, let's tackle a big and honestly pretty controversial question today. What really separates the rich from the poor? We're going to see it's not just about the money in the bank. It's about habits, it's about mindsets, and it's about the deep psychology that drives our decisions. Opinions on this are all over the place, but we're going to dig into what the research and the experts are actually saying. And this quote right here, it's the perfect place to start. It brings up a huge question. Is your financial destiny all on you, or is it kind of shaped by the people you're closest to? It's a really powerful idea to keep in the back of your mind as we go through this.
So here's our game plan for today. We're going to kick things off with the practical stuff, daily spending habits. Then we'll go deeper into the mindsets that actually build wealth and the psychology of scarcity that can hold people back. And finally, we'll look at how we use money as a social signal and the common traps that can make wealth disappear, even after you've built it.
All right, so first up, let's start with the most visible part of this whole equation, our spending habits. This is everything from the tiny choices we make every day to the huge question of why we even take on debt in the first place. Sources really point out this huge split in how debt is seen. On one side, you've got consumption loans. That's borrowing for things that lose value over time, like a new phone, a vacation, you name it. But on the other side, you have investment loans, using debt to buy assets that are designed to grow your wealth, things like a business or real estate. And that difference, it's absolutely enormous. And this lack of a financial cushion is, well, it's pretty stark. Research found that a full 40% of Americans couldn't cover a surprise $400 expense with cash. Think about that. That's not about missing out on a luxury item. That's about the real profound fragility of living without any safety net at all. Now, this is where the source material draws some pretty controversial lines. It suggests that the wealthy tend to focus their energy on increasing their income, while the poor have to focus on stretching what little they have. The comparisons are really stark. Buying stocks when they're on sale versus buying clothes on sale, or investing in nutrition to perform at your best versus the immediate convenience of fast food. Okay, but those daily habits, they're really just the tip of the iceberg. Now, we need to go deeper to look at the internal mindsets that are driving those actions. Because, as it turns out, real financial growth isn't just about what you do, it's about how you think. One of the big ideas that keeps coming up in the research is this concept of locus of control. One mindset tends to blame outside forces for things going wrong, which kind of creates a sense of victimhood. The other mindset takes responsibility, looks at setbacks, and asks, okay, what could I have done differently to change that outcome? So, how do you actually build this kind of mindset? Well, it seems to boil down to a few key things. First, a real commitment to always be learning. Reading, analyzing, finding mentors. Second, consciously choosing your environment, which, hey, brings us right back to that quote about the 5 people around you. And finally, and this one is so crucial, follow through. One source pointed out that tons of businesses fail for one simple reason. They never even get started. So, we've looked at the what, the habits, the mindsets. But that just begs a much deeper question, right? The why. Why do these patterns even exist? To get that, we have to explore the incredibly powerful psychology of scarcity. And this question, it honestly reframes everything we've just talked about. Are those so-called bad habits we mentioned just simple, conscious choices? Or are they actually better understood as scars, these deeply ingrained adaptations to a life of financial stress? This brings us to a really powerful idea called the scarcity imprint. The theory is that spending years in survival mode can literally rewire your brain. So even if your income changes for the better, that wiring doesn't just disappear. One psychologist put it perfectly. The nervous system isn't just stockpiling things, it's trying to stockpile calm against a future storm it believes is always coming. And you can actually see this imprint show up in some really specific behaviors. Hoarding essentials just in case, that's not about being messy. It comes from a deep fear of having nothing left. Tracking every single penny isn't about being cheap, it's a survival tactic to stay ahead of disaster. Even something like social hypervigilance, constantly reading a room for threats, that's often a skill learned in a financially stressed home. It's all rooted in this core belief that the good times won't last. Okay, let's zoom out for a second from our own psychology to the world around us. Because our spending isn't just about what we need or what our past has taught us, it's also a way we communicate. It's how we signal who we are and where we stand to everyone else. And the classic idea here is something called conspicuous consumption. It's a term that's been around for a while from a sociologist named Thorsten Veblen. It's basically the act of buying expensive stuff, not just because you like it, but as a public performance of your economic power. The whole goal is to gain or just maintain a certain social status. And this is where the trap lies, you see. As wealth starts to grow, it can be really easy to shift your focus from long-term building to short-term performing. Your spending becomes more about showing off your current status than actually securing your future. And that can threaten the very foundation you built. But wait, it's not always that simple. Research from books like The Millionaire Next Door points to the total opposite behavior, something they call conspicuous frugality. This is where true wealth is shown by avoiding all those status symbols. The authors found that many millionaires would much rather pay cash for a reliable used car to build their net worth than to show it off on a luxury car that's just losing value every day. And that whole idea of avoiding flashy symbols really highlights a super important point. Having a high income does not, I repeat, does not guarantee a high net worth. So let's look at the common traps that cause people to lose the wealth they worked so hard to build in the first place. Hey, remember that core wealth building strategy we talked about earlier? Using debt to invest in things that will actually make you more money? Okay, now contrast that with this finding. Professionals like doctors and lawyers, even with their huge incomes, are often found to have surprisingly low net worth. And the reason? Intense societal pressure and expectations to live a certain lifestyle, which means all that high income goes straight out the door to expenses instead of into investments. This whole thing actually has a name. It's called lifestyle creep. It's that simple but incredibly powerful tendency for your spending to rise right along with your income. You get a raise, so you get a nicer car, a bigger house, and suddenly you're not actually any better off when it comes to building real wealth. You know, wealth managers will tell you there's this classic story, 4 common mistakes that can totally derail someone's first million. First, they get aggressive and forget to play defense, taking on way too much risk. Second, they let that lifestyle creep just eat away at their gains. Third, they hit that first big goal, get comfortable, and forget to set the next one. And finally, they don't diversify, leaving their entire nest egg way too vulnerable. And that really brings us to the one question at the heart of all of this. Is your money working on your future, or is it performing for your present? Is it there to build your security, or is it there to broadcast your success? It's a decision every single one of us has to make,